What's up guys, SAG here and welcome to another video today on the channel as we are in week 3 of college football spread talk. I hope you're all doing well. Let me just sit back and relax here. I'm Christopher Smith, he's here with you today and I hope you all doing fantastic. I'm doing pretty well. We have the NFL spread talk video up and now we're back to college football, trying to get this up for the Friday before the Friday games. So first we always start with a review of how we did, and first we'll start with the avoid picks, and we went 1-4 in the avoid picks again, and it would balance out. BYU did end up getting the cover against Baylor. Texas A&M straight up lost that game. Arizona State did not get the cover. Arizona didn't get the cover, and Ohio State definitely didn't win by enough points against Arkansas State. In our average picks, we went 4-0-1. Penn State ended up winning by a lot against Ohio. Louisville didn't just get the cover, they got the win, guys. What a big win for us on Friday night. I was really pumped to see that. Then Iowa State didn't just cover, they won the game outright against Iowa. And Iowa's offense is really bad, guys. Just to call a spade a spade. North Carolina ended up winning by 7 against Georgia State. That ended up being a push. And USC, sorry, there's a bug. Jeez, my nose there. Anyways, USC won and covered. They looked fantastic against Stanford, and even that late push by Stanford couldn't even get the job done. In our money picks, it was not very good for us. We were 2-3-1. Now Duke was +10. They outright won the game against Northwestern. Boise State, it's funny. I had 2 bets on them, and one of those bets was on 16, and one of those bets was 17. And a late kickoff return touchdown made it a 17-point win. That's the importance of buying every point and making sure you're on the spreads. So technically I put it at 17, so it's rated a push. Alabama, man, they almost lost that game against Texas. They did not show out. Michigan State, Akron was just barely under the total, but I kind of was saying Akron's not going to do anything offensively, and they should have did it. And West Virginia straight up lost the game against Kansas, and I have to learn from that because I think I'm realizing Kansas is a much better team than I anticipated. But overall, I mean, it's been quite interesting this year as my avoid picks have been 4-4-1. The all-time record will be up on the board, I believe. My average picks are 14-4-2, 14 wins, 4 losses, 2 pushes. And my money picks have been 4-8-1. It's been really tough for my money picks, really. But if you know that, guys, if you've seen that, you know this is the week I should respond in because everything will balance out. I hope that's so. Let's get some cash this week, guys, because it's just been a tough start of the season. But the average picks have balanced it out, really, as they have been fantastic. So first, let's start with this Friday night game, and it seems like when I had a really nice read on Louisville last week, and they're 2.5-point underdogs here against Florida State in Louisville. I mean, Florida State's 3-0 for the first time since 2015. They played in week 0. They were off last week, and they came off a big win against LSU, which was a fantastic win. The Cardinals, they opened their season with 31-7 loss to Syracuse, but then won against UCF 20-14. Now, this will be the first game inside Cardinal Stadium, and it has an exciting matchup for Friday night. I hope you all watch it because it's Malik Cunningham going up against Jordan Travis, who are 2 fantastic quarterbacks. I think Jordan Travis is underrated. I mean, when I watched him against that LSU defense, he looked absolutely fantastic. Now, the Seminoles, they're 17-6 all-time against Louisville, but the Cardinals have won 4 of their past 6, including a huge win in Tallahassee last September. And, guys, to me, I mean, watching this game, I have to take Florida State in this game. I think Louisville is a great team, and so is Florida State. But after what I saw against LSU, man, they're going to show up this game. And we don't know this, but Jordan Travis used to play for Louisville. And, I mean, this is a revenge game for him. Louisville, they won us some points last week, but now Florida State's only -2.5. Man, I got to take Florida State in the points here. Florida State's a really good team, guys. They looked fantastic, and they're going to continue to look fantastic because Malik Cunningham won that game for Louisville against UCF. Let's remember that because without Malik Cunningham, they're not doing nothing because he had to scramble and make something out of nothing a lot of the times against UCF. And I think, UCF's offense was really very run-oriented. They can't really throw the ball. Now, Jordan Travis can sling the ball. He looks fantastic. So I'm taking Florida State with the points, -2.5, and that's a money pick. Next up, we have Georgia, who is 24-point favorites, going up against South Carolina. And now, I mean, Stetson Bennett looks like a fantastic quarterback. He was great against Oregon, and against that game against Stanford, I mean, he got the job done. And South Carolina hasn't been bad so far against the pass, but I mean, it gets hammered on the ground. Georgia State was able to get 5 yards per carry, and Arkansas was close to 300 yards and 5 scores in last week's 44-30 win. I mean, Georgia, they haven't quite cranked up the running game, but it hasn't really needed to. It really probably won't. I mean, KJ Jefferson for Arkansas, he hit 18. He was 18 for 21 on the Gamecocks. I think Stetson Bennett can do the same. I think Georgia can get this running game going. But I mean, for South Carolina, this is a big game. I mean, Spencer Rattler has been hardly perfect, but he does have some upside, and he has some moments where he can hit. And I mean, South Carolina's going to be ready for this game. They're at least a decent team, and this is a big number, 24 points. But I still think Georgia's good enough to win in a cover. I mean, they didn't really show up against Stanford to cover the spread. They still won, obviously, 33-0, but it didn't even come close to covering the spread. And it was just a relaxed game, kind of. But this game, they're going to show up as their first really road test at South Carolina. They're going to be ready for this game, really. And I'm going to take the minus 24. I'm going to take it as an average pick. I just think Georgia's that talented. Next up, we have Oklahoma, who are 11.5-point favorites against Arkansas. And obviously, this game is marred with the firing of Scott Frost, which put some numbers, which kind of reduced the spread a bit and favored Oklahoma less. But I mean, did Nebraska just become better at football now that Scott Frost is gone? I mean, this is not a good team. They just aren't that good. How many turnovers has really Nebraska had? They've had 5. And I mean, it didn't give up any in the loss to Georgia Southern, but it had 10 penalties, and it put together one of the worst defensive performances we've ever seen. And Oklahoma might not come up with the 575 yards and the 45 points that Georgia Southern generated, but it's been really good offensively. Dylan Gabriel is absolutely fantastic. And I mean, Oklahoma doesn't turn over the ball like Nebraska does. They have a pretty good defense, and there's a reason why they're a ranked team. And this is only 11.5, guys. I know it's in Nebraska, but I mean, I don't know. Now, maybe there is a motivation factor. I mean, they are converting on 36, and for Nebraska, they're converting on 60% of their third down tries. And I mean, Oklahoma couldn't get its ground game going. I mean, maybe Casey Thompson gets in a groove. Maybe it's just Scott Frost. I think that's the biggest question in this game. Is Scott Frost the reason why Nebraska's bad? And for me, I can't make it a money pick because I can't answer that question fully. But I can lean towards a no. I don't think Scott Frost is the reason. And Oklahoma's a really good ranked team. They're a fantastic team. I think they show out here, and I think they're going to win and cover this spread. I think Nebraska just sucks. That's the truth. But they're going to come out motivated. So that's why I'm not making it a money pick. Because this could really happen. But I think Nebraska just is trash. To call a spade, Nebraska's trash. And Oklahoma's a good enough team to cover the spread. But I'm going to take it as an average pick. I'm taking Oklahoma minus 11.5. Let's move on to the next game. I mean, Michigan is 46-point favorites. I haven't covered many Michigan games. They're big spreads. I'm actually going to be at this game, so I'm pretty excited. Maybe I'll share some film. But Michigan 46-point favorites against Uconn at home. And I mean, Uconn isn't that good. They've had to put in a new quarterback, Zion Turner, who wasn't that bad. I mean, he was 14 for 17 for 92 yards. That isn't many yards per pass. And they did win against Central Connecticut, but they lost to Utah State, and they got mauled against Syracuse. I almost took Syracuse, Connecticut in the points, but thank goodness I didn't. I kind of realized, man, Connecticut's just that bad. They're not a good team under Jim Mora Jr. And I mean, Michigan is only converting on 31% of their tries, but let's be real. There's a reason why Michigan's favored by so much, and Uconn is turnover prone. And I mean, Michigan's ground game is fantastic, and J.J. McCarthy's a fantastic quarterback. He's going to be great for them. And I mean, this Michigan team is talented. It could beat Ohio State. It really does have a chance. But I think it's definitely a really deep team. Uconn, they're probably not going to generate much. They're in the backfield, and it definitely won't come up with enough with a push for really a running attack. But guys, I'm just going to avoid this game. I think 46 points is just too much. Maybe J.J. McCarthy comes out and Cade McNamara limits the score. But I don't trust Uconn, obviously. So I'm just going to avoid this game. I do like the under, though. Under 56.5, guys. Take a look at it because I don't think Uconn's going to score any points. I don't think they're going to score any points. I just think they're that bad. And 3 at the most. It's just kind of like my logic with Michigan State last week. I think that Uconn won't score any. And Akron, just like with Akron, I didn't think they were going to score any either. And this Michigan State defense is even better than the Michigan State defense. I just think, yeah, Uconn's not good enough. They're not going to score any points, guys. They only scored 14 against Syracuse in the beginning of the game, and they're not going to score any here. So my money pick is actually a bit different. I'm going to avoid this game, take Michigan State with the points on an avoid pick, but I actually got a money pick again on a total. If you rode with me last, you know I'm going to prove myself with this. But last time I rode with Michigan State, Akron under, and I'm taking Michigan Uconn under 56 here. Very similar situation, I think. Next up, we have Purdue taking on Syracuse at the Carrier Dome. This is a pick'em. Now, credits to Syracuse, they've looked a lot better. But first, we'll start with Purdue. I mean, Purdue is pretty good. I mean, but teams have really been hitting that Syracuse secondary. I mean, there might not be a ton of production, but these mid-range throws have been connecting on 70% of the passes against Syracuse's opponents. And, I mean, against Indiana State, they put a nearly perfect performance out there. And against Penn State, they were pretty solid. Now, if O'Connell can be consistent on his short throws and his offense can control it, they can keep the Orange on the sidelines. And the time of possession matters here. Syracuse in their games have been dominating the clock. But Purdue, they're okay with playing that game. I know they can win that time of possession. Now, on the Syracuse side, I mean, look at this new look offense that Syracuse has. Sean Tucker looks fantastic, and Garrett Schrader has hit on 75.9% of his passes for 529 yards and 5 scores and wins against Louisville and Uconn. Now, I mean, Sean Clifford, when he played Purdue, he didn't exactly carve up that secondary, but he hit when he needed to. And I could possibly see that for Garrett Schrader at quarterback. And the Orange are pretty balanced, and they really yet to turn the ball over. And they should be able to get a pass rush going, at least enough to bother O'Connell and Purdue. Now, this game's a pick'em. Could have moved to 1.5. I'm going to take Purdue in this game. I just think I'm taking the more experienced Big Ten team that played a solid game against Penn State. Syracuse's experience isn't that good. Louisville just played a bad game. And UConn's a nobody. UConn's trash. And Purdue's just more proven to me. In that Penn State game, they proved they're a good team. And I think that good team shows out here against Syracuse. I'm going to take Purdue to win the game. And I'm going to take it as an average pick. Next up, we have Old Dominion against Virginia. I just want to double check what I took here. Yep. Where I took it, sorry. Now, Old Dominion, they're going to look to rebound from that 39-21 loss against East Carolina. And they did win before, though, against Virginia Tech and pulled off an upset and ruined one of my picks. Now, they do have Hayden Wolf at the quarterback. They have Blake Watson and Allie Jennings. And for the Virginia side, they're hoping to bounce back after their loss 23-3 to Illinois last time out. They looked horrible, and Illinois is not a good team, guys. And that says a lot. Brendan Armstrong threw for 426 yards, 2 TDs, and 3 picks. They were just not good in that game. And now Virginia's defense, they have 5 sacks, and Anthony Johnson also has an interception. And just looking at this game, I don't know. Now, Old Dominion is on the road, so this makes it a bit different. But, I mean, you just lost 23-3 to Illinois. They're not that good. Illinois isn't that good. And you have Virginia here as a 9.5, 10-point favorite. I mean, guys, I just can't take Virginia with the points right now. I can't. So, I'm going to take here... Sorry, let me fix that. I'm taking Old Dominion on an average pick, plus 9.5, plus 10. Doesn't matter, but I'm going to take it at plus 10. That's what I'm more comfortable with. But yeah, Old Dominion's the better team here. Almost. They're almost a better team, but they definitely can keep it within the score. I mean, they beat Virginia Tech, who isn't even that bad. But yeah, we'll see how this game goes. I'm very interested to see how this one goes. Next up, we have BYU coming off a big win against Baylor at home. That was a fantastic game. Mark Jones and RG3 was on the call. I mean, that was so fun to watch. That BYU atmosphere was fantastic. Taking on Oregon in Eugene, and BYU have won their last 4 road games, including that one against UCF where they blew them out. And Jaron Hall, he's completed 67% of his passes for 522 yards, 3 TDs, and a pick. I mean, BYU has a pretty solid team. Defensively, they allow around 20.5 points and 292 yards a game. And now the thing with Oregon is, though, they haven't lost a game at home since September 2018. Bo Nix has completed 70% of his passes for 450 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 2 picks. And Troy Franklin and Deontay Thornton have combined for 198 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. Now, Oregon did lose against Georgia, and they lost pretty soundly. But, I mean, I really don't know. I think they did respond the next game. I think the big question is what Oregon shows out here, because they got dominated by a better team. And in my opinion, I'm not for sure about this game. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it. But my gut tells me to take BYU in this game with the points at plus 3.5, because I think this is going to be a really close game. And it's going to be a good game, because BYU has the talent, in my opinion, to keep Oregon close. But Oregon is at home, and they're really good at home, and they get the job done at home. So I'm going to take BYU plus 3.5 as an avoid pick. We're definitely going to avoid this one, guys. Let's not touch it. I'm just going to add that to my avoid picks. BYU plus 3.5. I forgot to edit that in. Check. There we go. So BYU plus 3.5 against Oregon. So next up we have Penn State, who are 3-point favorites up against Auburn. Now Penn State, I mean, they did look pretty good. They survived a thriller at Purdue, and then they hosted an Ohio team that throttled Florida Atlantic before, and they just straight up dominated. That offense looked fantastic. Their passing attack hit 300 yards for the second game in a row, and their defense did more than its part. Now, there were problems against Aiden O'Connell, but the secondary did hold its own. And between that game and the Ohio win, Penn State has allowed just 48% of all passes to be completed. They've only had 1 turnover also, and penalties haven't been a problem. Now, for Auburn, it's going to be quite interesting because they haven't allowed anything on the ground. Now, I mean, they played Mercer and San Jose State, so the competition that's not much competition. But their run defenses look fantastic, and it just looks like Penn State's going to have to win this through the air. Now, it took a bit too much, really, for the Tigers to get by San Jose State. But as long as the defense could keep generating pressure and the offense can get something out of that running game, this could be really close. But in my opinion, guys, I think Sean Clifford's just a talented quarterback, and I think he gets the job done against Auburn. I mean, Auburn has looked very shaky. Now, I get Auburn's at home, but I think Penn State is a really good team. They're an underrated team. They got a solid secondary. Now, they battled it out against Purdue and just barely pulled out. And I think it's a very similar game. But I think Purdue's actually better than Auburn. I think Penn State wins this by 4 points or more. I'm taking Penn State in an average pick. I couldn't put myself to a money pick. Hopefully you get at 2.5, guys. Get this thing at 2.5. But I think Penn State's the better team. I'm taking them at -3 for an average pick. Next up, we got Kansas against Houston. I mean, Kansas burned us last week. They went through Tennessee Tech, and they put up 55 on the road against West Virginia. And that was a huge step forward for their program. Their offensive balance is fantastic with over 200 yards rushing and receiving. Their attack led the nation in third down conversions, and Jalen Daniels looks fantastic. In Houston, they've needed overtime to get past Texas Tech and UTSA. And now one thing I will give Houston, though, they are pretty balanced. They battle-tested. They fought well against Texas Tech, and Frank Harris is a good quarterback. Now, they do have a great pass rush, and their defense gets into the backfield regularly, and their takeaways are pretty good. Now, Can their pass rush get to Daniels? That's a big question. And the thing to me is, here, Houston's favored by 10. And to me, I got burned last time, and I'm not going to get burned again by Kansas. I've learned my lesson here. And I think 10 points is just too much here. Kansas is a solid team, and bettors aren't going to give them the respect they deserve, because Kansas is known to be a bad team, and they've always been a bad team. But I learned my lesson after one loss, and it actually took two technically, because they ran over an FCS team. But that was a lesson there. Just like Indiana during the COVID year, when Indiana covered all seven spreads. I think Kansas covers the spread. I don't know if they're going to win the game, but I know they can cover 10. I'm taking an average pick. I almost took Houston, but I learned. I'm taking Kansas plus the points, plus 10 as an average pick. Next up, we have Mississippi State against LSU. And, I mean, Mississippi State looks fantastic. The Bulldogs have really looked really good against Memphis and Arizona. That offense is firing on all cylinders, guys. I mean, they they look fantastic. LSU, they struggled against Florida State, but they were great against Southern. But the result against the Seminoles told a lot. Will Rogers and that passing attack should get going. The defense has been pretty good overall, even though they haven't played someone as well as like a Georgia. But still, Memphis and Arizona are no flukes. But LSU, they haven't really come up with a pass rush either. But in LSU defense, they do have Jaden Daniels, who doesn't get enough credit for almost pulling them out of that FSU game. He did start off a bit shaky, but he learned as he got into the game, and the offense showed up. And in the next game, he looked absolutely fantastic. And this LSU defense is pretty good too. They do have the talent they do have the secondary talent to hold up Rodgers in that hot receiving corps. The Michigan State defense isn't going to really get into the backfield to bother Jaden Daniels. And then there's the turnovers. Mississippi State has 5 giveaways in 2 games. And that LSU defense, they've generated 6 turnovers. So in this game, I'm just going to avoid and watch this one. But something tells me LSU is going to take this one, guys. LSU's at home. I can't. Mississippi State's a really good team, though, and I respect that. There's a reason why they're the favorites. But I'm going to just go in the avoid pick and avoid this game. Avoid it completely. LSU plus 2. Next up, we have Texas Tech taking on NC State. And, the offense has kept moving for Texas Tech. They are pretty good. I just have to check who I pick. Sometimes I kind of don't remember whether it's an avoid pick or an average pick sometimes. But it did lose Tyler Shogg to injury against Murray State, but Donovan Smith has stepped in. He's been fantastic. The passing game is clicking, and his team is off to a winning start. Now, the Red Raiders, they're pretty good against the run. Their pass defense has also held up, only allowing 47% completion percentage against them. Now, NC State hasn't really been quite what everyone has been expecting so far. They're sputtering with that passing game, and their defense hasn't generated consistent pressure. But at the same time, NC State's offensive line has been really good. They aren't clicking yet, but they did have 5 touchdown passes against Charleston Southern. The line has yet to give up a sack, and their running game isn't too bad. That's why you schedule these bad teams, because you need to improve. You can still be mediocre and still be 2-0. Now, they did win 55-3 last game, and their defense should hold up well against the Texas Tech running game. And if Smith will hit a few throws. Let's call it a spade. But NC State will probably come up with a few takeaways to really make up for it. I don't really know who to take here. I think NC State's favored by a bit too many points, but I'm going to take the minus 10.5 as an avoid pick. I'm definitely avoiding this game. Yeah, I don't know who to take here. Next up, Michigan State travels to Washington. Was going to be an absolutely fantastic game. You guys should be excited for this game, guys, because I am. They're taking on Washington. Now, Michigan State, they've looked pretty good in their first 2 games. Their running game is just fine. It's just fine. And their pass defense isn't getting ripped to shreds. Now, they aren't necessarily Western Michigan and Akron isn't really that good of teams. But, I mean, they're still looking pretty good. And Washington, they aren't tested with easy wins against Kent State and Portland State. Now, can it handle the Michigan State power game? I mean, the Spartans are almost perfectly balanced with the combination of Jalen Berger and Jarek Broussard pounding away. But at the same time, Washington's passing game should really be a big test. The warm-up games have mattered for the Huskies. They're healthy, and they have the makeup to hold up against this Michigan State running attack. Now, dealing with Western Michigan and Akron is one thing, but it's now working against Washington's new head coach, Kalen DeBoer. Indiana transfer Michael Penix Jr. has gone off, and the passing attack has looked fantastic. I mean, this is going to be a close game, guys, but I think Michigan State's a better team, and I just have that feeling that Michigan State, they really play up to big games. And I think this is a big game for them where they show up. And they know they need to win this game to really survive in this Big Ten and to keep themselves in contention. So I think, guys, I'm going to take Michigan State. I just have that feeling, plus 3.5 against Washington. I think they're a really good team this year. I like they didn't show out against, they had their issues against Western Michigan. But when it matters the most, it's like they play up to the big teams, but they kind of they play down to the small teams, Michigan State. And I think they're going to show out here. I'm taking Michigan State to cover, plus 3.5. Next up, we have USF taking on Florida, who are 24.5-point favorites. Now, USF hasn't looked the greatest. It was balanced against LSU, but not necessarily in a good way. It did look good against Howard, which they expected to win. But I mean, come on now. This is Florida now. This is a different team. Now, the Bulls' defense, they have generated 4 takeaways so far. But, I mean, USF's offense is just not good enough. Of course, it's going to look great against Howard, but it was supposed to be, and it didn't even really look that great. Florida just came off a big loss against Kentucky, where Kentucky just was the better team. And playing up against an NFL caliber quarterback in Will Levis is a lot. But playing up against this USF offense, which is absolutely garbage, is another thing. They've only converted 25% of its third downs, and they've only combined to hit 53% of their passing attempts. And that's combined with the Howard game. I mean, guys, this USF team isn't good, but to me, the spread is too much. I don't know what the take on Anthony Richardson. This could really be a bounce-back game. But I'm avoiding this game. I've been investing in Florida, but now I'm avoiding this game. I think Anthony Richardson will have a great game, but 24.5 points is just too much to me. So I'm just going to take Florida minus 24.5, but I'm avoiding this game. Next up, Pittsburgh is 10-point favorites, taking on Western Michigan. And this is going to be quite interesting. I think the biggest tale here after Pittsburgh's 34-27 OT loss is that Keaton Slevis is injured. Now the backup quarterback has to come in. But at the end of the day, they're still a great team. I mean, they do have Israel Abanikanda. They have Jared Wayne, Katana Mumford. And they have a pretty solid defense. And they played Tennessee to an absolutely fantastic game. Now, Western Michigan, they had a tough loss against Michigan State. But they did show out against Ball State last time out with a 37-30 win. Now, what we really have to say is Ball State a good team and Western Michigan good? Or is Ball State just bad and Western Michigan is bad too? And now Pittsburgh is only 10-point favorites in Western Michigan. This is going to be quite an interesting one. But to me, I think Pittsburgh, as a ranked team, 10-point favorites against Western Michigan? Guys, I have to take Pittsburgh in this game. I mean, come on, they're just the better team. Overall, they're a really talented group that beat West Virginia. Now, I know West Virginia lost to Kansas, but they're still a good team. I think Pittsburgh shows out here. They know with their backup quarterback in, they know they have to win. They're the away team here. Now, Western Michigan isn't that good, guys. They couldn't even cover the spread against Michigan State. Guys, I'm taking Pittsburgh with the points minus 10 as an average pick. This is quite an interesting line, but I think this is underestimating Pittsburgh here. Next up, we have Miami going up against Texas A&M. Now, this is quite the interesting game. Texas, hold up, I didn't even throw a pick in here. I I just realized there's honestly like a lot of avoid picks in this one. Now, it was quite interesting. I had an avoid pick for Texas A&M last time, and they ended up being losing to Appalachian State outright, which was, obviously we know what happened. Appalachian State, the streets went crazy with that. But I mean, Texas A&M looks horrible. He was I mean, they're can they score? That's the big question. By the way, Texas A&M is 5.5-point favorites. I mean, Haynes King looks like a promising young quarterback, but is the firepower there? I mean, more to the point, can A&M's deliberate style show off whether or not the playmakers are there? Well, I mean, they just weren't there against Appalachian State. They only scored 14 points, and they only had 8 first downs. Now, I know Miami's defense isn't quite there yet, but I mean, it showed off its offensive talent. But, I mean, if Tyler Van Dyke can just, get the passing game up a bit, can Texas A&M even crank up any sort of comeback? Now with Texas A&M, I think Texas A&M fans really just will be like, let's pump the brake, guys. Appalachian State is a veteran team that showed out. And no, the A&M offense did not come through, but the other side was more than fine. Their defense looked absolutely fantastic. And it only gave up 17 points against the Appalachian State team that scored 64 on North Carolina. And I just don't know with this game, guys. These are two teams with two different crises. Let me just plug in my phone here. Now, for Miami, I think Miami now has the changing of quarterback. They have their starting quarterback injured, and that makes a huge difference in why Texas A&M is favored by 5.5. But at the same time, Texas A&M just lost to an unranked team. I mean, I don't really know here, guys. I'm just going to avoid this game and take Texas A&M with the points. Next up, we have Fresno State going up against USC. Let me just see. I believe, did I make it an average? No, I haven't really decided. Let me plug this one in. Yeah. No. I did decide on this game. Yep. I remember. Sometimes I don't know if I plugged it in or not, but I mean, Fresno State, they lost to Oregon State. By the way, USC is 12-point favorites. Now, we cashed with USC last time. I said it was a borderline money pick, and it definitely did cash. USC showed out at Stanford. Now they go back home. They've covered the past 2 spreads. Jake Heiner, he's had 737 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I've watched Fresno State against Oregon State. They played Oregon State to a fantastic game, just losing 35-32. But credits to Fresno State. They looked great in that game. Their offense is fantastic. And USC, they won 41-28 against Stanford. Caleb Williams, I mean, this guy's a baller. Him and Jordan Addison are absolutely fantastic. I mean, can anyone stop USC? I mean, goodness. Both teams are just really talented offensively, but USC is obviously the bigger team. But in my opinion, I think Fresno State has the offensive talent to keep this a game. USC's blown out the past 2 teams, and this could really be a letdown spot for them. They could underestimate Fresno State, who just lost to Oregon State. And Fresno State's going to become motivated. This is such a huge game to them. This is almost like a Super Bowl to them, going up against a big team like USC. I just think Fresno State has the talent to cover, and for the first time, USC is going to be put through a close game because I don't think USC has the talent on defense to stop Jake Heiner. Jake Heiner can throw the ball, guys. I watched him. I was scared to death because I had bet that game. And Oregon State did come through with a win. But, man, that Fresno State team is really good and not to be underestimated. So I'm going to take a money pick here because I think Fresno State's going to cover this at plus 12. Try to get to plus 14. But if they don't give it to you, take the plus 12. Next up, we have Eastern Michigan, who are 20-point underdogs coming off a huge loss. Going up against Arizona State, who failed to cover against Oklahoma State. Arizona State is 20-point favorites. Now, Eastern Michigan, they opened up the year against Eastern Kentucky, where they won 42-34. And then in their game 2 against Louisiana, they were up 14-0 at half, but then lost 49-21. Now, Taylor Powell, he had 2 pretty solid games. He has thrown interceptions, though. He's been turnover prone. but he still was pretty decent. Now on the Arizona State side, they won against Northern Arizona. We had a pick on that one, taking Arizona State with the points. Emory Jones, he looked pretty solid. But against Oklahoma State, they didn't look good. They were outscored 17-3 at half, and they couldn't make up the gap with the 34-17 loss. Emory Jones, he finished with 223 yards in the score, and Valde had 118 yards and a TD off 21 carries. They didn't really look that good, guys, to be honest. They just didn't. And here, guys, I don't really know what to take. This could be a letdown spot. This could be a good spot. But Eastern Michigan isn't that bad, guys. They showed out against Louisiana, then they just fell apart. I think they're good enough, to be honest, to cover this spread, guys. It is a bit high to me for Arizona State. So I'm going to just avoid this game, guys. And I'm going to take Eastern Michigan plus the points, plus 20. But this is going to be a void pick for me, guys. Something just tells me, maybe it's just because I live near Eastern Michigan, I have a bit of a soft spot for them. I think they can cover this game, guys. I really think they can. Arizona State isn't that good. Northern Arizona is not good, is not even close to Eastern Michigan, guys. So I'm going to take Eastern Michigan plus the points, but I can't trust them enough yet after that last week, to make this an average or a money pick. So it's an avoid pick. So guys, let's take a look at the picks I made. They will be up on the screen, hopefully. So in my money picks, I took Florida State minus 2.5, Notre Dame minus 10.5, Michigan versus Uconn. I took it under 56. Oh yeah, by the way, for the Notre Dame game, they're playing California at home. I'm telling you guys, people are going to overreact, but Notre Dame is going to respond in this game big time because they are a good team overall. So, and also another money pick I took Toledo plus 32 because I think Toledo's a good enough team to keep this a game against Ohio State, at least that 20-25 margin. Toledo's a solid team, guys. Don't underestimate these guys. They're going to get 20 to 24 points on Ohio State, which keeps them close enough. And I'm taking Fresno State plus 12 on my money picks. On my average picks, I'm taking Georgia minus 24, Oklahoma minus 11.5, Purdue in a pick'em, Old Dominion plus the points, plus 10, Penn State minus 3, Kansas plus 9 or plus 10, whatever. But I put on the screen plus 9, so it'll officially be plus 9. Michigan State plus 3.5. And Pittsburgh minus 10. In my avoid picks, I'm taking Michigan minus 46, NC State minus 10.5, LSU plus 2, Florida minus 24.5, Eastern Michigan plus 20, BYU plus 3.5, and Texas A&M minus 5.5. There's a lot of avoid picks in this one. But, I mean, guys, how much do you want to bet on? I mean, goodness, there's a lot of games. I mean, there's going to be some games you're going to need to avoid and watch. So, for me, there's a bit more avoid picks. If you like what you saw, guys, like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope I will see you again. And let's get some cash, guys. I feel like this is going to be a bounce-back week for our money picks, guys. Let's ride them, and let's win, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, this is SAG, hoping you all have a nice day.